My name is Natalie Maniscalco. I'm the co-founder of Wonder Girls along with Irene Zervudis. And we are really excited to be here tonight with all of you. And I appreciate everyone being on this call. This is such an important issue that we are tackling. If you want more information about Wonder Girls, please feel free to go to wondergirlsusa.org. We have created a new PSA for child trafficking campaign with high school girls from Cliffside Park High School, who are, some of them are on the call, as well as Lyndhurst High School, taking a stand on this important issue. And I'm just excited to be here with everyone tonight. And without further ado, we're going to jump right into the presentation by Jennifer Homan. She is an advocate for human trafficking and the co-founder of Fight for Us organization. I also just want to mention that at the end of this presentation, we will open it up for discussion and Q&A. If you do have any questions throughout this presentation, feel free to add them in the comment section, and Irene will be sure to make sure that they are answered. And we look forward to, engaging with all of you at the very end. So Jennifer, please take it off. Jennifer Homan, again, thank you so much for being here. And we're so honored to have you be a part of this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit, but people often ask, how did you get into this, or what do you do? This isn't really my day job. It's kind of what I call a side hustle. But before I start, I want to tell you, all of you young women that are with us today, that you are fabulous, you're amazing, you're strong, you can empower yourself. You don't have to wait for anybody else to empower you. And I'm super excited that you guys are involved in an organization like Wonder Girls. And really that means you're just badasses. Sorry, moms, I do a little bit of, I say a couple bad words, but the girls know. So it's good to meet you. Let me tell you who I am. I live in Houston, Texas. Most importantly, I'm a wife. I try to be a good one, and a mom to 2 boys. I got involved with helping young women get involved in tech and science because I'm what's called a Chief Information and Technology Officer for a large offshore drilling company. But that's my day job. But I also advocated for the kids, the girls, the 276 girls that went missing in Boko Haram, at the hands of Boko Haram in Chibok, Nigeria. So that's how I got into the very verbal activist mode when those girls went missing. The reason I'm in this cause is in 2016, my family knew 4 families whose daughters were groomed and lured online or in their schools, and what's called groomed and recruited into the horrid world of sex trafficking. And so rather than focus my time on getting girls into tech and STEM, which I still do, my main focus became helping girls survive the perpetrators that go after them, or at least prevent them from getting in the hands of those perpetrators. So another oil and gas executive, his daughter was groomed and then taken for 8 days, and so against her will. And so we started a presentation at a high school here in Houston, one of the ones that's in the center. So it can start from anywhere is what my point for that. It can start in your high school with the stuff you guys are already doing. And we believe we woke up Houston because it was happening. We kind of explained that it was happening in every school. It wasn't just in the underrepresented areas or in the suburbs. It wasn't just a certain color, a race, or an origin. That the victims and survivors and overcomers of this thing look like everyone. And so then in 2017, what I did is, when I wanted to learn more about the issue, I got 20 plus anti-trafficking nonprofits here in Houston to start collaborating with me on a monthly basis and teaching me about the issue. I listened mostly to survivors and overcomers of this space to understand how I could, in the right ways, support what we needed to have done and make a change and an impact for Houston. And then what I did is, once I realized we were working with those nonprofits, I then raised up a group of strong women in Houston called the Houston 20, and we started raising money for those nonprofits. That was one area of influence my husband and I had been involved in, the philanthropic world of Houston. And so then what I also did is then get the oil and gas industry with now 63 large companies focusing on engaging, creating awareness, educating, engaging, and investing in this issue. And so now I'm trying to get other industries like the restaurant industry, the food manufacturing distribution industry, the hotel industry, restaurant, I mean, all kinds of the film industry. We're now trying to get other industries doing what the oil and gas industry has done, which is come together and collaborate on this human rights issue in our country. And so that's who I am. I don't like to talk too much about that. I really want to focus on the issue. And what we believe is the fight for us is not just victims and survivors and overcomers, although they're our focus. It's all those the families of those survivors. And Elsa will talk to you about a little about being a family of someone that was a victim of this issue. We want to support the nonprofit leaders in these fights. They operate on very little budgets and do a lot of work, and there's not enough of them that are able to provide services. We want to support the committed freedom fighters who are willing to use their voice and their influence to make a difference. And then our community, because we believe that this is in every part of our community. We have 4 pillars, and I do believe these should be the 4 pillars of any mission that you have when you want to get involved in this space. Is 1, to create prevention through awareness, not to just make awareness, but create prevention. And then we need to develop trauma-informed healing solutions for victims and survivors so that they can figure out how to recover and restore their lives. And then we want to facilitate survivors to sustain a free and independent life that's free of of a nonprofit, free of an advocate, free of maybe their families they depend on, but basically live a free and independent life. And then we need to change laws, because with good impact has to come laws that helps victims and survivors, but punishes the criminals that are doing this to our children and young women. So those are the 4 things we focused on. A lot of people want to do statistics, and they want to tell you how many people they think are victimized by this issue. I don't like to focus on that because I think the numbers are all bull. I'm trying to not say bad words in front of these sweet young girls, but I think that they're just not real, because no victim or survivor is going to raise their hand and say, oh, you wouldn't be able to count them, in other words, is what I'm saying. So what we do try to do is, with the online world and knowing how many transactions are happening online, we're able to potentially estimate how big of an industry this is. So if you look at this page, basically they say this is $150 billion to $200 billion industry of selling humans for sex. At children, boys and girls, men and women, being sold for sex, and the industry is making that much money. If you look at the major brands, you can see how much that total, that means the money that McDonald's and Target and the NFL bring in, it's more than what they make. And then if you look at oil and gas companies that you've heard about, you can tell that this industry is making more than those 5 large corporations. So that kind of gives you a quantity, a little bit of how many people this is affecting. What I want to teach you about this, and for those of you that are still students, it's called the value chain. Any business that is, sex trafficking is a business like every other. It has a product, it has a buyer, and it has a seller. And so the buyer of sex with children, sex with women, sex with men, is called a John, or what we call the demand. They create a demand in the world so that there is a supply. And the supply is what some people have called before in the past a prostitute, a victim, a survivor, and now we're trying to use the word overcomer for those that have gone through therapeutic care. The seller is what some people used to call a pimp. Most of us now are calling traffickers. But you also have facilitators, hotels, restaurants that know and see this is going on, but are doing nothing about it, and facilitating and watching and letting it happen. And then you have the bystander, which we believe is the most powerful in this situation to be able to help. And so prostitution, I need you to know the difference, because what you see out there, young women, and I want you to be very careful about, is the sugar baby movement. That's where somebody has convinced young women that they should make money on selling pictures of themselves, either nude and in risque positions. videos or pictures. And that's just bullshit. That is not feminism. That is exploitation. However, that's a person exploiting themselves when they're selling a picture of themselves where nobody else is making the money but that person. You see a lot of girls in high school and you see a lot of girls in college doing this. And so what I will tell you is, although that's considered sex work, and some feminists, they think they're feminists, believe that's okay, I will tell you that it destroys your heart and your soul, and it is truly exploitative of everything good inside of you. So please be careful. Trafficking is when you have somebody buying either pictures, videos, or a person for sex. Then there's the person being sold for sex, and then somebody else is making the money. That is what's called sex trafficking. There's two forms of human trafficking. You have sex trafficking and you have labor trafficking, meaning they're working for free, but it's not for sex. They're either doing construction or some type of in the food industry or whatever they're, in agriculture. That's labor trafficking, but we're talking specifically about sex trafficking. So that's what this is, right? This has got a value chain. It's got how they move different people through this scenario, and people are making money off of a human for sex. So please know the difference. We show this picture because we want our children to be aware of who the traffickers are. So I'm going to ask if some of our young women would come off mute really quick and tell me who you think is the trafficker. Who do you think is the seller, the trafficker in this picture that I'm showing you? Come off of mute.
I'm gonna call someone. I know Shaylene's on here. Shaylene, I'm gonna call on you. Who do you think's the trafficker in the 7 pictures?
Shaylene, I think she's still on mute, or she's not on. How about let's see who else. Who else is on there? Astrid. Can you want to answer?
Astrid.
It's the same. She's the same one. Okay, I tell you what. Anybody, adult, somebody may be sure. Oh, Astrid, do you want to go ahead?
I mean, it could be anyone.
She's so right. Yes.
But I'll go with the man with the black jacket.
Yes, but you're right. You're right. It's all of those people. The girl on the upper left was on the varsity cheerleading squad, and she sold for sex the junior varsity girls. The mom on the blonde-headed lady on the lower left, she sold her 3 daughters for sex so she could make money. The guy on the lower right was in the military. He used to be bisex with minors, and he realized that he could make more money in selling children than he could in the military. The guy on the one on the right next to the military guy, he's a deacon at a church. And so all of these are not only charged, but prosecuted human traffickers, well-known cases. So what I'm gonna now teach you is the most important part of this presentation, the most important part. I'm gonna teach you how this happens. And for those of you that are young women, I need you to understand what I'm saying. You don't have to tell me if you've seen it before, but I need you to be aware, because I need you to help me, help you, help your friends. So not only to protect yourself, but if you believe that this would never happen to you, at least, and I can tell you and convince you that it can, but I at least want you to help me protect your friends if you see these signs. So the first sign is called befriend. This is when all of a sudden you meet, or your friend has met a new friend. They're cool to hang out with, they're new to your friend group, or just maybe a friend that's kind of off on the side that you get to know. It's called the befriend stage. They're probably a little bit older than you. Something probably makes you feel like like they're in trouble a little bit, or maybe they're a little bit different and they're not like your traditional friend group. And so they become your friend. And then what happens is the intoxication phase. This is when, now let's be honest, in high school or junior high, people are going to offer you alcohol or weed or different types of drugs. But this person's main goal is to introduce those things to you if you haven't already used them before. And for those of you that are parents, if you think that our high school children are not smoking weed, it's legal in Colorado. It's legal wherever. So there are now becoming excuses as to why this is okay to do. And so those people are trying to either introduce these types of substances or increase the access to those substances. It's called the intoxication phase. And then the alienation phase, by the way, the places they can get access to your kids to clubs or take them to parties where that you don't know they're at, or you may be invited to a party that you know your parents wouldn't let you go to, or you know it probably isn't a place for you to be. That's where they continue to introduce intoxicant or to introduce substances that you shouldn't be using. The alienation phase is when all of a sudden your parent or somebody that cares about you says, hey, you know, that friend of yours doesn't seem like they're a good influence on you. And you're like, oh, well, you kind of just bypass it. You're like, oh, it's okay that, you know, maybe they get in trouble a little bit, whatever. But that friend that they're talking about is basically realizing that either your parent or your guardian or whoever you're with and that takes care of you, helps take care of you, they start calling them out. They basically say, God, your mom is so strict. She's a bitch. She won't let you go out to a party. Like, why? Who doesn't do that? Or your mom won't let you go to this club with me. Man, she's so like, whenever you like want a place to come stay, you can come stay at my house. So this is called the alienation phase, because what they're trying to do is pit you against your family, your parents, your guardians, your grandparents, whoever's trying to steer you in the right direction. They're trying to alienate you from them. That means make them think bad, make you think bad of them. Like they're just trying to hold you back and be too strict. That's called alienation. Isolation phase is now where this new friend wants you to start hanging out with a whole nother group of friends. Maybe the friends from the club or the people from the party or the guys that can get you alcohol. And so that's called the isolation phase. That's where for parents and for those of you that have friends that want to help your friends, you're going to see your friend kind of start moving away from you as a regular friend and start hanging out with that new friend that befriended them. So it's a very visual, it's one of the most visual stages you could ever see, is that the child's friend group or your friend's friend group starts changing. And they're hanging out with the people that are getting in trouble, or they're hanging out with people that are doing things they shouldn't be doing. That's called the isolation phase. They're trying to isolate you from your friend, or isolate you if you're helping your friend out, isolate you from them. The fifth stage is called desensitize, because those new set of friends that your friend is hanging out with, maybe that new set of friends, one of them's a stripper. And they say, you know what, she's a stripper. I know she works at a strip club, but she has to make money to go to college, or she has to help raise, you know, her family, or so they make excuses why some of the maybe jobs or careers that are out there are good for them rather than being bad or hurtful. Or they say, oh, well, yeah, he's, you know, she's hanging out with that new friend is a drug dealer, but it's just pot. You know, pot's legal in Colorado and like 15 states, and it's okay. And so what they're doing is desensitizing your moral compass, because you know those things aren't good for you. And so they're just basically trying to say, it's okay, don't worry about it. And so that's called the desensitized phase. And parents, that's when this new set of friends or this new friend is trying to break down the moral compass that you have given your child. Or if you're raising a nephew or a grandchild, they're trying to break down that moral compass. Then the last stage is to capitalize. So basically now they've turned this child against their family. They've introduced intoxication in situations where they could be hurt. They've isolated them from all their friends that care about them, that could see some of the signs. And then they desensitize them by telling them that it's okay to get involved in illegal activity. And all that's left is to capitalize when at that moment, your child, or if for you young girls, your friend gets so frustrated and mad at their family or whoever's taking care of them and says, hey, you know what, you can come live with us. And that child willingly goes, or your friend willingly goes with those people because they think it's going to be better. They think they're going to have more freedom, or you think you're going to have more freedom. That's the capitalized stage. And let me just tell you what happens that then those people or that person that we call a groomer or recruiter, that's when he or she basically says, you know what, I'm giving you a place to live. Now you're going to do this. You're going to go in that room and you're going to have sex with that guy. And so that's the capitalization phase. That's all that's left, because they've convinced you to move away from all the people that you care about, or they've convinced your friend to move all the way to people care about. And all they have to do is capitalize now and start making money on your friend or on you if you've fallen into this. So those are the 6 steps that we try to teach you as students, as young women, to protect yourselves and at least look out for your friends. If you see a friend that is falling into this, or you're like, hey, that now I click, maybe my friend, you know, maybe my friend Stephanie, I've seen some of these things happen. She's hanging out with a new group of people. The most important thing for you to do is go to a trusted adult, either your counselor or maybe your big sister or maybe your cousin, and say, I think Stephanie's in trouble. That's all you have to do. You don't have to be a narc. You don't have to be a snitch. You just have to make someone aware, make the Wonder Girl founders aware that you know somebody's in trouble. And then you can walk away. Then let the adults take over, let the trusted people take over and try to help that young woman or that young man. So are there any questions from you on these stages? No? All good? Making sense? Y'all can still hear me? Beautiful. In 2016, I'm going to share with you how alarming this is. In 2016, these were some facts that I found back then. Now we're in 2022, right? For Texas, there was a 22% increase from one year to the next, from 2015 to 2016, 22% increase. That's a big number, girls. For Texas, we were only the second behind California that made calls in the National Human Trafficking Hotline. We realized that 77% of the recorded cases of trafficking were for sex, not labor, that were being called in. We also realized that 76% of all the transactions to purchase sex from children, from minors, from young women was happening online. It used to be, it was done in person. You would see somebody driving up and down a road and girls on the side. It looks like prostitution. But now what we're knowing is because of the internet, it's now, and the social media apps, it's happening online, and OnlyFans, and TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. It's happening on all those platforms. This is what I need to scare the heck out of you. But I said, I need to scare you to make you aware to help you protect, which is these young women, they only last for 7 years in this life on average. They die from many causes, and then there's only a 2% chance that we can actually, I hate the word rescue, but that we can actually find you once you're gone. It takes a whole lot of effort to find you. And it's usually the way we find somebody is through their phone and their social media apps or online, because we have facial recognition and can see ads that have been placed online for girls, and we can find you that way. But let me tell you that if a pimp or a trafficker gets a hold of your friend or you, they take your phone almost immediately. They take your ID. You have very little ability to be able to get yourself help. So those were some of the statistics down in 2016. What I need you to know is it's not like the movie Taken. That's not how it happens. It is a slow grooming and recruiting process. Traffickers can wait a long time because there's a lot of money to be made on one person. So just realize it doesn't look like that. It's not just happening to kids in the underrepresented areas or to immigrants or to foster kids or runaways. It's happening to everyone. So it's happening in the suburbs, it's happening in the urban areas, it's happening downtown, it's happening outside of town. It's happening in every type of community, no matter what the socioeconomic level or the nationality or the color or the gender or the age. So, and it's growing, continuously growing. We're raising awareness, and we think more people are identifying what it is because we're continuing to teach, but we know that it's growing explosively. I also need you to know that the drug traffickers are now the sex traffickers, because they realize they can make more money on one person over and over and over again, rather than selling one joint or one hit of pills or whatever, bars or whatever. So Xanax, whatever they've got. They know that they can use that person over and over again to make money rather than it being gone one time. They're hard to catch. The traffickers are hard to catch because normally what's happening is they're dropping a girl off at a hotel, making sure that they know that the girl knows that they're watching them and that they can't leave the hotel. And then they're making them do what's called turn a trick or have sex with someone. And so they're hard to catch. They're not usually on property. They're not usually where the girl is. They're not there. So you need to understand that. The reason we have to change laws is because they're the government, the judicial system is very lenient on them. In some cases, this is a Class B misdemeanor rather than a felony. In the state of Texas, we hope to encourage the rest of the states across the nation is we just changed buying sex from a misdemeanor to a state jail felony. So it's very important. We know that they're increasing demand. They have easier access to our teenagers, and it's a very sophisticated recruiting process. I use this slide to talk to students. And so for those of you that are students in the room, I need you to understand this. One of the biggest reasons why we know girls get caught in this issue or in this problem is because of self-esteem. And so it's so exciting to see programs like Wonder Girls who want to help you build up your self-esteem, because this is why the vulnerability is huge. There are so many vulnerabilities. We used to believe that vulnerabilities where they only had one parent in the home, or they lived in an area that and their family didn't have a lot of money. But that day is gone. Although those are vulnerabilities, even more vulnerabilities are when you're in a fight with your friend group and you put that on social media and some groomer is online watching you and becomes your friend. We know that, when you're dealing with facial issues, I did myself when I was in middle school, and you have acne and you're just kind of shameful that you don't take, like, that's a reason why you're just so frustrated and you humiliated and you think that should be something to be embarrassed of. Your parents getting a divorce or anything that's really messing up your world becomes a vulnerability where we can become sad and we potentially become vulnerable to somebody wanting to do us harm. But what I will tell you is this: find a place and understanding that you know who you are, that you love who you are, because people love you no matter what. And the last thing you need to do is to believe that just because of these outside things or social issues should make you let somebody become your friend and harm you. You don't deserve that. No matter what's ever happened in your life, you deserve the best in life. And so that's what we need. Self-esteem is the most important thing to work on. Find that something that gives you a spark. Find that thing that helps you build yourself up to be a really strong young woman and conquer this world. And I know the Wonder Girls help you do that. So parents, what you won't see is chains and ropes. It doesn't look like that. It looks like everyday life that your child is going through. And girls, this is what you need to know. By the way, like, I just got a call this week. There was a parent that called me. She wanted me to do an intervention. My daughter just had roses show up from a guy that she knows online. He says he's 14-year-old. He lives in California. No 14-year-old boy should be sending your daughter roses from California. What 14-year-old boy has $100 to send roses, right? That's probably not a 14-year-old boy, girls. He's a liar, or she's a liar. Whoever that is, don't take the roses. If somebody sends you roses, send them back. I'll send you roses. Don't do that, right? That's not what's really happening. If your child starts or your friend starts getting gifts left at their front door, some kid got Louis Vuitton shoes. No other kid can afford Louis Vuitton shoes. Well, I mean, maybe some of them can, but mine can't. But what I'm saying is that's not okay for somebody that you've never met to start giving your child gifts or give your friend gifts, because something's going on that's wrong there. So always, understand, keep your eyes open for those types of things. Here's what I want to tell you. Know the process and the signs that I just told you about. Understand them. Learn how to protect your friends. Definitely learn how to protect yourself. For those of you that parents, you have to watch out for your child. You need to engage. You need to understand what you're seeing. Girls, let me tell you this. When your parents want access to your social media accounts, it's not always a pry into your privacy, but it's to make sure we can go find you if something happens. Understand who's talking to you. There should be nothing you say that your parent isn't prepared to listen to. And for those of you that, what I tell parents is don't be assholes. Just be open to conversation. Understand where your child is, understand the challenges they face at school and online and bullying and everything that's going on in the world, their grades. There's a lot to keep going. So be that kind of parent, or find your child somebody like the Wonder Girls organization that they can trust and share things with. So find somebody you trust. And it's not always a friend. You need to be able to trust and make sure, parents, that you have access to their social media and that you're watching, because sometimes we get so caught up in all the different, I have so many social media contacts. I don't know who they all are. And sometimes I think they're all my friends. And the online world is a friend group. So parents will be like, oh, they're not your friend because you've never met them. You've never met them in Facebook, in face-to-face before. Really? I think the pandemic taught us something different, right? Now all of our friends are online or virtual. So don't say that to your kid. Those are their friends. My son does Roblox and he does different gaming, and he's known some of those guys for 5 years. Those are their friends. But we have to teach our children what are good friends and what are friends that are mean harm for them. Talk to your kids, change your parenting, learn how to have good conversation. Discuss this issue with family and friends. Everybody needs to know how to protect their nieces and their grandchildren and their children and their friends. Help support laws. Girls, young women, you have no idea how much power you have that of going to a state legislation, meaning going to Congress, going to the Senate, and speaking on behalf of young women to convince them to help find laws to protect us. It is so powerful when I have a 14-year-old girl speaking to senators and talking about how to protect us as children and to protect our kids. It is so powerful. So get involved in lawmaking in your state. Support abolitionist leaders. Find the different organizations that are focused on this. And then last but not least, volunteer and fight. This is the worst human rights issue our country has ever seen, ever. It is bigger. There are more people involved in this issue that are being victimized than what happened in the transatlantic slavery. So I'm telling you, it's a massive issue, and we have to all fight back for our kids with the organizations that are willing. I'm not going to go through this in too much, but I'm going to tell you that there are so many. I've helped over 121 families or girls, either with resources or actually going out on the streets and trying to find these kids. But the longer that they're being groomed online or at school or wherever they're being groomed, is the harder it is to get them out of what we call this life. And so these are some of the scenarios. We had one girl that got raped at a party. They videoed it, put it on social media, humiliated her, and she ran away. And as she ran away, she got involved with people that were selling weed. Well, those drug guys were sex traffickers. So there's so many different scenarios. We went to two young 14-year-old girls. They snuck out of the house. Their parents were tracking their phone. They could see they left the house they were supposed to be spending the night at, went to a party. The parents called and say, we know you're not at the house you're supposed to be at. So the two 14-year-old girls were freaking out. They got a 17-year-old girl to take them away from that party because they knew their parents were coming. The 17-year-old girl took them to a kickback. And if you don't know what a kickback is, it's a smaller party. I'm saying that for the parents, by the way. I know a lot of street terms these days. So took them to a kickback. They went to hang out there. There were 3 boys there. They raped the 3 girls and then raped the 2 14-year-old girls and then sold them for a fee to a well-known trafficker in downtown Houston. So it's a process. They know who to contact to make money. And so that's what happened with the two girls. So anyways, sometimes this looks like a boyfriend. Sometimes this is a guy that you've been meeting and talking to that you think loves you or that you care about him or her. And then they turn into somebody that is recruiting you for this. So there's all kinds of scenarios that I could play for you. But one of the big things we do is if we teach, so young women, if you will just learn about this issue, get involved in fighting back, you'll understand that so many people need help. And here in Houston, We have a large group of people that are understanding all the different services we need to help victims and survivors. And even if you think that maybe one of your friends is being groomed or recruited, getting them involved in this issue and helping other young women or women in this that have been victimized, it helps them open their eyes to see what's happening and potentially understand the signs and contribute to the cause rather than becoming a victim themselves. So these are the different services. We're identifying the gaps constantly in Houston for direct services for victims and survivors, and that's what this process is. But remember the value chain? Every part of that value chain has gaps. The community needs awareness and education and create demand reduction. What that means is to stop getting men to buy children and women for sex. That's demand reduction. For survivors, we need emergency assessment centers so that when they come out of the life, we can help them. And we need long-term aftercare. It takes years to restore and feel better after this. And then we need more outreach and intervention to come and help them exit what we call exit the life. Buyers need awareness, education, and they need to stop buying children and women for sex. Sellers, also the traffickers, they also need outreach and intervention. We believe that at some point they were abused too. They were abused and became the abuser. So they need trauma-informed care and restoration. And for facilitators, we need to do awareness and education, but also teach them how to identify and report. So every single person involved in that value chain needs help. This is what we did in Houston. We created the Fight for Us movement. We're learning from those experts, those nonprofits and survivors. We're increasing our community involvement in Houston, and we're filling those gaps. And it's like an ecosystem that we've created where we have survivors and leaders, what we call overcomers, those that have gone through therapy, law enforcement, nonprofits, the healthcare community has gotten on board, our faith-based community, cultural and business organizations like the NAACP and the Chambers of Commerce, our corporate community, you can see I put Goya there, and then just the general community. And we're all fighting, we're working together to fight for legislation and affect change in these multiple industries to help move this forward and end this at some point. Our number one priority is to create residential trauma-informed. When we're raising money, we're helping victims and survivors with residential trauma-informed healthcare or care solutions, as well as trying to take our small ecosystem in Houston and eventually make it national. And so that's where we'll have an online place, we're working on it now, where everybody can join in, all the different stakeholders. And if you need to find a place in New York that you need a victim to take a victim to, or you need to know the anti-trafficking organizations in California or survivor leaders in Alabama, this will be a place where we can go. And then the last things I'll say is you can do it. In 2018, I found myself in the White House with 3 survivor leaders. We passed a bill called FOSTA SESTA, and it's helped stop or turn it into a criminal act and civil restitution for online sex trafficking. And you can read about it if you Google those words. And then in Texas, we changed the age to work in a strip club from 18 to 21, or really in a sexually oriented business. So those are now, the organizations can be held responsible for letting 18, 19-year-olds work in strip clubs where we know trafficking is happening. This is it. It's just working together. It's a movement. I would say join the fight. This is what we present in Houston. Hopefully we'll have the Houston 20. We hope the 20s will become the next Mothers Against Drunk Driving, which will be all over the nation where we're doing this. But most important, you know what? Go to fightforus.org. It's where you see the more the details on this grooming process. The most important thing is to protect your family and friends, and then keep spreading the word and help us and engage with the leader in this fight. So that's it. Are there any questions? Natalie, do you want to hold questions afterwards? Because I can do questions now or introduce a survivor leader that's going to speak with you today.
I'd say let's go right into meeting Beatrice.
Okay. So now I'm going to introduce you a fabulous human being. She's like a rock star in my world. Beatrice Zarco is a survivor overcomer who not only has just absolutely persevered through this issue, but also now is an entrepreneur and has her, I'll let her tell you what she does. I get all excited. So she's super fabulous.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank Wonder Girls for having me, and Jen and everyone that's on this evening. Like Jen said, my name is Beatrice. I am from California. I grew up in a very rural city in Marin County. So I grew up very nicely, educated. That wasn't very educated, but I was educated. I did horseback riding. I played soccer my whole life. I went to private art classes. So I didn't miss out on anything on that range. My parents migrated from Central America, El Salvador, and moved to San Francisco. And then from there, we moved to Marin County, where my parents cleaned houses. So I was kind of like the token Latina girl that got invited to go everywhere with every family, skiing or Mexico or anywhere. I have a different story. So after I graduated high school, I moved to Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, I went to fashion school and did wardrobe styling for entertainment and music and all that kind of stuff. So I worked in the film industry for a while. And then after that, I moved around a couple of times back to California, to San Francisco, then to Las Vegas. But I was always a social butterfly. Take it however you want with that being said, invited to all kinds of parties, used to hang out at the Playboy Mansion, all kind of industry parties. So the Grammys, the Oscars, everything. I was going to all those kind of parties, or either doing their makeup or doing wardrobing for them. From there, I moved to Arizona, and I'll make this a little shorter, since I have so many different variables to my story. And from Arizona, I got the opportunity to move to Austin, Texas. And that right before I moved from Phoenix to Austin, I met a madam. And if anybody knows what a madam is, she's a recruiter, a trafficker, who made kind of this lifestyle little more, what is the word? Just fun and exciting and
Glamorous, maybe glamorous is a good word.
Glamorous. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you, Jen. And introduced us to different people. And then from there, I moved here to Houston from Austin. And then I met someone. I met a couple girls actually, and each one of them learned everything about me. They befriended me, like Jen talks about, and they introduced me, or they spoke about me to their traffickers. So when I first moved here, I was approached probably within a 6-month time period by at least 5 traffickers wanting me to be on their team. And then I met someone that I fell in love with. And for 2 years, he was my best friend. He loved me, all kinds of stuff. And then it turns out that he was also a trafficker and was grooming me to just be out here and making him money. Once I learned that, since I was in love with him, it took a lot from me, out of me. I think I lost that spark that I once had, and got really sad and depressed, and didn't understand how someone could do something like that. How these people meet, while I also work in the skincare industry. So while these people were coming in to see me, I was trying to help them get out of the life. But at the same time, I had somebody that was trying to put me into the life. And it didn't make any sense. It didn't make, especially because I couldn't think or imagine, like, how could this be happening to me? Like, I'm at an age, I was 30 something years old, so older, like, you're not like, I wasn't easily influenced. So I thought, and my pride and my ego and all those things, like, this could never happen to me. This is not happening to me, but it was. And it wasn't until I realized that it was that I stopped talking to him, and he just kept breaking into my emails, breaking into my social security, getting cars, getting all kinds of stuff, and trying to kind of make me go back to him so that I could do what he was doing for the past 2 years, which was grooming me. Finally, I lost everything. So I moved here and started a business in Houston, River Oaks. I closed that business, lost everything. I lost all my friends because I didn't have any friends. I moved to Houston and I didn't know anybody. And I finally got the opportunity to get away from him, but it took a really, really long time. And I just want to share with you girls that are on here, like, be careful who you trust. Your parents, my parents have always been my best friend, so I never had any issues with them. I was very open with them. They taught me to be independent. But at the same time, like, your parents are your best friends, no matter what. There might be misunderstandings there. You might not, be on the same wavelength for a little bit. Something always comes up, but they're the people that you need to trust the most, and your family, because they want the best for you. And that's all I can say. Like, to this point, to this day, my parents have no idea that I went through this. And I know that it would kill them to know that I suffered and that I went through something like this. But anyhow, that's somewhat of my story. If you guys have any questions or need to know anything or need any advice, parents or young adults, I'm here and happy to answer, help you in any way. And reach out. When people aren't supposed to be your friends, and when something's not good, you can feel it in your gut. So listen and pay attention to that, and know that people do love you. And you may go through phases where you don't have many friends, or you're not popular, or you have acne or hyperpigmentation, anything like that. But just know that people do love you and they want the best for you. And there are people that are mean and evil, and they don't want the best from you.
I love you, baby.
I love
There are a couple of questions I want to answer really quick. In there, it says, are police officers trained about how to spot traffickers and how to circumvent suspicious situations? Sometimes. In the bigger cities, what we're learning is some of the law enforcement agencies do, but like your regular patrol car guys don't. And when you have, officer agencies of 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people, it's hard to keep them all trained about how to spot it and what to do next. So I wouldn't say that that's really, if you see something and you need to engage, not only engage with the police officers and call the police officers, but also an anti-trafficking organization in your local area, and use both if you need their help. One person said trafficking. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Beatrice. No, go ahead.
So you don't know, like, people don't understand what you may be going through if this is happening to you. And it's hard to explain to people and for them to really get what is happening. And if it's not for Jen out here and Wonder Girls, like, seriously, it would be really hard for people to understand and to give help, and just know that you can reach out.
Totally agree. And then somebody said trafficking is a federal crime with severe penalties for traffickers. Yes, but Most trafficking cases are prosecuted by the county or your local district attorney. And what we're finding, we have this challenge here in Houston, is although the police are getting them and they're being charged, when it comes to the magistrate or the judge setting the bond, they're giving them very low bonds or letting them out on multiple bonds. In fact, I was on Fox News tonight here in Houston. We're looking for a guy that has 5 felony bonds, 5 different times, a well-known human trafficker, and has been charged multiple times, and he's now fugitive. And so the local county is not holding them accountable and prosecuting all the way to the extent of the law. So what we do, so it's not always a federal crime. It's a federal crime when they've crossed and they can prove that it goes across state line. And then that's when the feds will get involved, maybe, sometimes, not always. And then when it's punished at a federal crime level, then there are very harsh penalties. The feds make them go to jail for a long time. The local areas are not. We're having to continue to stay on top of them to make sure they prosecute to the full extent of the law.
I saw a question on there where it said, why isn't this on the media? So there's a little, like, kind of, this is a very gray area as to why it's not on the media. 9 times out of 10, a lot of the Me Too movement, a lot of these people are buyers. So they don't want to be exposed to what is really happening behind the scenes. And so the media tries to keep it more on a hushed level so that people don't get into that whole lifestyle.
Maybe makes a good point. Buyers are sometimes legislators, they're sometimes well-known community leaders, sometimes they're law enforcement, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're every type of person. So I think that's the point BB's making. I think the other question is the ongoing dialogue about e-commerce, D2C sites like Wayfair being involved in this industry. This is a theory spoken about all over the internet, yet isn't covered on major news. Can you speak on silencing the stories? That's a little bit about what BB was talking to. The Wayfair situation was a little bit, we don't really know if that was a true situation. It was hyped up a lot. I would say every situation's different. So you kind of have to know your news source, and usually the local news sources are the ones that are really talking about this, except for in the case of the recent Epstein case, which I actually have survivor leaders that are friends of mine that were there inside that case. So look, we just got to keep getting louder. The community has to keep raising their voice on this. So I think those are all the questions. What can we do to bring this issue to light? Yes, keep getting louder. That's right. Get involved with the organizations that are working on this issue. Create your own awareness events. You don't have to have a nonprofit to do that. Get your schools involved. Get your local businesses involved. Create your ecosystem. And I'm happy to have conversations with anybody that wants to know how you can engage, and we call it enraged to engage. So that's what. And so with that though, I know you all have to introduce Elsa, and she's an amazing human being that I adore. So I'm sure she has a lot of information to share with you too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, this was just incredible. So much information to, really understand and digest. Thank you so much, Beatrice, for sharing your incredible story. Just so inspiring. And you are a courageous woman. So we really appreciate you being with us tonight. I would like to now introduce Elsa. She will tell you her story, and I would like to also share something that we have for her that we created for her daughter. So Elsa, if you could just unmute yourself.
Yes. And thank you, Beatrice, for sharing your story. You are a success story. And Jennifer, somebody asked, what can we do to make a difference? Well, Jennifer is a mom, and she is just a woman like the rest of us. So just stepping up and getting involved, that's how we make a difference. I want to start by just introducing my little girl. Her name is Britta. When Charles and I first got married, we had a dream of one day having a little girl, and we knew her name before we were even pregnant. We knew we wanted to have a daughter, and we knew her name was going to be Britta. And lo and behold, we were pregnant and we had a son. We didn't even have a daughter. So it was still yet another 2 years before we had a daughter, and we did. We had Britta. For the young women out there, I want you to know that, you know, Britta was full of life, and she was kind and gentle. She loved the brokenhearted, and she would go sit with the person that was, you know, just a loner. She didn't care about somebody that was popular. She just wanted to go sit with somebody that was hurting. She was gentle and kind. She loved to say, do you know that ice cream makes you feel happy? She was, so I just wanted you to know a little bit about the little girl. When we would go on boat rides, she would be the first one to put on the life jacket and just jump full force into the lake, trusting that her father was going to catch her. She was courageous. But you know, what's important for us to all understand is that we all have a vulnerable side to us, every single one of us. At any given moment, we can fall to vulnerability. And, you know, when you look at that little girl, when you see that beautiful dress on the left-hand side, you know, she was going to a prom that night. And I had no idea till many years later that that was one of the first times that she was manipulated. I wish I had known and recognized the signs, but many years later, she had shared with me that that was the beginning of somebody manipulating and just playing with her mind and telling her she was less than, but I had no idea. Well, it wasn't too long after that photo that our daughter went off to college. We had lots of hopes and dreams, and for all purposes, I would tell you that, you know, Britta had a great life. We went skiing and great vacations, and lived in Texas, Arizona. We've moved quite a bit. Well, Britta went to NAU, and we dropped her off at college. And the very first night, I know, you know, as parents, we tell our kids, well, when you're at college, when you're at a party, don't take a drink and drink from an open cup when you set it down. And she would say, Mom, I know. And I'm like, no, I'm really serious. If you put a cup down, don't pick it up and drink it. And she said, I know. Well, unfortunately, she did. And Britta was raped on the first night of college. She was told that there was some girls were banging on a door, and apparently she was behind a door, and a guy had raped her. And that was the beginning of a nightmare for our family. Charles and I would go up to ASU time and time again, and the nightmare got darker and darker. We took her to counseling, and she would sit there and not say a word. She didn't want to talk about what happened, and she would tell me that we couldn't make her talk about it. And she didn't want to leave ASU. She wanted to stay at college. And NAU, I'm sorry, NAU. And also, you know, we talk about the 6 steps of recruiting, you know, befriending, intoxicating. Those are important steps for us to be aware of. Her dealing with being raped, the intoxicating was the next step that drew her into what we now see were the steps in her recruiting towards her human trafficking and the loss of our daughter in this nightmare that our family was about to walk through. and the alienation and the isolation and her addiction. I would go up there and the things that I would see were just, she was, I found a new word. It's Tricotilomania. And I didn't know what that word was until I got up there. Her beautiful long blonde hair. One time I got up there and she had all these bald spots where she was pulling out her hair. And then her body would have bruising all over her body. She started using drugs. Before I knew it, we had lost her to drug addiction, and she was becoming a drug dealer between NAU and SAU. ASU. Yeah, Tempe. One of the most difficult situations for Charles and I at the time was, we would tell her that, we're trying to make sense with her and kind of argue what we were seeing happening. And now she is becoming isolated from us and these people. And she was desensitized because she was telling us that what she was doing made sense, and she was helping friends. And I was telling her, these aren't good friends. These aren't your friends, but they had become her friends. And her heart was connected with these other people. And it was just, she'd already become, her heart was becoming more identified with these other people, and we were losing her really quickly. And before you knew it, she was addicted to the drugs, and she needed the drugs so much that whatever they promised her, she'd say they were her friends. And I'd say, they don't love you. We love you. But she'd say, but they'll give me what I need. And I'd tell her, but you don't understand, to give you the drugs is not somebody that loves you. But she wanted the addiction so bad that she would identify them loving her because they would give her the drugs. And so she went off with these people. And in less than one semester, my daughter was living in Phoenix, Arizona, and she was being sold on Craigslist on Backpage. My husband would drive around ASU. He would drive around ASU looking for my daughter to try and take her food on the streets. For 5 years, it was very, very difficult. 5 years. You see that sweet little girl that she goes from having dreams to very quickly living for the drug. And the drug was just a tool. It was just the avenue that was used so that they can use her as a commodity. And she became a tool in the hand of the human trafficker. And there was no sense. It was like, how do I make sense? It's like I didn't even speak the same language as my daughter. When I tried to talk with her, it didn't even make sense. These people loved her and I didn't love her. And so I tried to tell her I love her, and she would say, but they love me. They're meeting my need. And so all her life, she just dreamt of being a mother. And she lost that dream because of addiction. Wonder Girl is, I love the trailer that you've put out there. It's helping the next generation of young women to recognize the false lies and to identify the steps of recruiting, but the false lies of promises. We need to, there's a whole world of vulnerable girls. And I want you to know that young girl that you see there, she loved the Lord as a young girl. And when we had dreams and hope for her, she was sweet and she loved the Lord and she helped girls. And she was always there to help somebody in need. And when she was in the darkest place, she would sit with ladies, young ladies in places of prostitution. And I want to share with you one of her favorite verses that she had marked. This is her Bible. And she underlined and circled Isaiah 41:13. And it says, "For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. Do not be afraid. I myself will help you, declares the Lord." You know, Britta was in some really dark places, but when she was in those places, she sat with other girls and she told them that God loved them and they had great value. And what Natalie and Jennifer are doing today in reminding the next generation of girls that they are not for sale and that they are valuable. Britta did in the dark places. And today, Charles and I have been blessed to get calls from girls who today have left and have been able to walk away from those dark places because Britta sat next to them and told them that their worth was much more than what they saw in themselves and that God had a better plan for them. She didn't believe it for herself. There was a season when she didn't, but in the end she did. So I just wanted to share that with you. And I wanted to show you a little picture here. This is a bag of beads. And I wanted to tell you that my granddaughter, who is in first grade, was given this by a little boy who told her he loved her. And my grandson, who's in second grade, took that bead and he broke it on the playground. And he told the little boy, you can't give that to her. You can't give that to her. She's too little and you don't love her. And my granddaughter got very upset and she's like, he gave that to me. Well, they came home and the three of us sat down and I sat with my granddaughter and I sat down and I told her about her worth, because you know what? She's in first grade and she really wanted this plastic bead of bracelet. But I want my little granddaughter to have the strength and the courage when she's in middle school or high school to say no to the boy who gives her a silver bracelet or that offers her a phone or that offers her a fancy purse, because her worth and her value is much greater. So I want to thank you, Natalie, for investing time, Jennifer, for being a mom who says, you know what, I'm going to get involved. And for all the young ladies who are here, who are learning and are going to say, I'm not afraid to step in if I see a friend and I see signs of something that doesn't look right. Thank you for the opportunity just to share my story. It's not easy, it's hard. Yes, we miss our daughter. But you know, our dreams of that beautiful young lady, Britta, she lived a wonderful life. She left us two beautiful children. And there are a lot of girls who today, they figured that they were worth great value because they knew her. So thank you.
I feel like there's not like much to say at this point. But Natalie and I are super grateful to I think, have been given this gift of Wonder Girls and to have established something that is only a year. I'm going to say it's like having a little baby, but we're empowering our younger generation to, God willing, not fall into the hands of, all of, there's a lot of just sick individuals in the world, and to just be able to stand on their own 2 feet and stand up for themselves and be leaders of themselves, as we always say, and, gain the confidence that they need to survive in this insane world. I guess I had a question about boys with this too. I know this happens to predominantly girls, but does this happen to boys too, Jennifer? I don't know, or if anybody else wants to answer.
Yeah, so let me tell you guys, sorry, I had come to my next event, so you might hear some things in the background, but so we believe, so in a recent poll where we looked at survivors, this one particular poll, out of about 500, we believe 36% were actually boys. And we think this happens with kids that are transitioning or battling with their sexual orientation, as well as runaways to be able to survive, but also foster care children. So that are falling into this. So yeah, boys, it's a big thing for boys as well.
And can I say, probably 2 separate times in seventh grade and then 11th grade, I was approached. And if I didn't have the confidence to basically just think this was so wacko, I mean, they're just looking for someone who's basically, vulnerable. And I was fortunate. And the bottom line was, if it happened to me, there's other people it's happening to, and some say, oh, interesting. And other people look at, person and say you're sick and move on, so it happened. And so, that's 2 examples, just me, that I know of.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Charles.
Yeah, and I want to tell you, we go to Teen Challenge and have spoken at several of the Women's Teen Challenge and got involved with the Men's Teen Challenge, going through it with our son-in-law. And a lot of the men have shared that they have experienced a lot of the sexual, aggression in through the addiction world. So it's not just a woman thing when so it's not just for women. So
can I say something?
Yes, Maritza.
Hi. And no, it is definitely not just for women. It's for young girls, young boys, teenagers, women, adult women, the LGBT community, teenagers, the homeless teenagers are all targeted also.
I think what kind of everybody has said is that they target the most vulnerable. And
there's no
I
discrimination.
There's zero discrimination, right? But I don't know. I feel like people that I know, even through experiences in my own life, I feel like when you're at this really, really low place, somehow the vultures come out and know. They just do. So it's almost like that's why Natalie and I are working so hard to just create this, like building the self-esteem from it's even younger than middle school, but we're starting there, and just trying to make these girls as strong as they possibly can be and not, push this stuff away.
Vulnerability is an interesting thing too, because it can happen at any point. Like you can be a confident woman and be fabulous at sports or fabulous in academia and have one moment of where you slip and fall down the hall and then you're embarrassed and you're vulnerable. So vulnerability can happen at any moment. And so we have to remember that we're all susceptible to vulnerability. We can't let our guard down. And so to all the young women out there, that is the challenge, to look out for each other and remember that we're all vulnerable. We're not, to look out for each other.
And really coming together and lifting each other up instead of putting each other down. That's a whole other Zoom call. Just really lifting each other up, you know, instead of making fun of each other through social media and putting each other down and this, you know, isolating and, you know, even just in friendships, pushing girls away. It's like, you know, you have all been so amazing, and my eyes are open a little bit wider tonight. And thank you for bringing, you know, light to this topic. I don't know if anybody else has any more questions. I know there's lots of comments. Beatrice, yes.
Also with social media, just girls, everyone, everything is being glorified as far as materialistic things, the lifestyle, the cars, the clothing. You know, you have artists out here that, you know, have gone from being victims to being famous and glorifying that lifestyle. But just know it's not easy, and it's not for anyone. It shouldn't be for anyone. And just be strong, and it's okay to be vulnerable, and everything will come full circle and you'll be okay. And just love yourself, be happy, be brave and strong.
Perfect words, Beatrice.
One more. My daughter was flown up to New York with a first class ticket, and we only found this after she passed away. She came home with no money, and she couldn't even pay for the baggage, but yet she was supposedly making a couple $1,000s a day. And the reason I brought this up was it just what was just said by Beatrice, is that the allure was, you're going to fly up in the first class. I mean, imagine me later going through all this stuff and I find something like that. And I said, my whole life, I'm 50 something years old, I never once flew first class. And she's going on a whim up here on first class. And what did they promise her? And so the thing is, it's so true. And girls, I just want to say this, I've done my best to raise an honorable young man. But I would say 98% of the guys, we're kind of messed up. You just got to really, really, really be strong with your girls, with your parents, whatever you got to do. And don't let these guys promise you a bunch of stuff. I hardly would ever recommend any guys I know for any of you on this screen. I don't, it's sad, but there's not very, I'm sad to say, we all have a lot of problems, and we've got to be really diligent ourselves to be good guys, to be for the young girls. So I'm just saying that because I've done my best. I got one kid, he's a pretty good guy, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot out there that are not. So please don't trust them for the most part. They'll prove their trust over a long time. What was the story told? 2 years, right, Beatrice? Somebody was sharing, yeah, wasn't some, were you sharing about falling in love?
2 years. It took him 2 years, and he love bombed me and promised me everything. I mean, he knew from these other girls that had befriended me what I wanted in my life. I wanted a partner. I wanted my business. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted all these things, family, children, everything. And he gave me none of that. He took that from me. He took, I feel like I lost my soul for a while.
Yeah.
And it takes time to build a foundation, and it takes time to build friendships. It doesn't happen overnight. And if things are being given to you just so quickly, it's not real. And
So
nothing is ever free. Nothing in this world is ever free. Always have to pay for it somehow, some way. Somebody's offering you a first flight, or first class flight somewhere. You're gonna have to do something when you get there.
Yeah.
And it's not good, and there's no way of turning back. And I could have lost my life plenty of times playing with that. and being in that lifestyle and being like, oh no, I can handle it. Nothing's going to happen to me. It happens. You never know. And
That's right.
you don't know these people, and you're giving them your address. They know where you live. They can come kidnap you. They can anything and manipulate you. They are fully trained. I don't know how, but they are, and they know exactly what to say. They know exactly what to do. They know what you want to hear. They know what you want. They know how to push you away from your family. They know how to push you away from your parents. They know how to give you things that your parents are probably able to give you at this moment. But just know, if you work hard and you educate yourself and you just stay focused, everything will come for you full circle, the way that it should be, in a positive, blessed way.
Beautifully said. And Charles, thank you for being vulnerable as a man for all of us here.
Mhm.
Honestly,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm really grateful for that. And on that note, Beatrice, actually, our next virtual workshop is on healthy teen relationships, because February is teen, oh God, on like dating abuse,
Yes,
teen
yes.
violence, teen violence. So our
Yeah.
next virtual workshop is literally going to be talking about this, what a healthy relationship looks like, especially in your teenage years, and
Mhm.
hopefully creating a foundation and bringing that into our adult years. So that'll be February 15th. but
Awesome.
we'll get that
Yeah, I'll
info.
log into that. That'll be great.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Natalie and I are so grateful
Thank
that
you.
you were all on here and sharing your stories, and, you know, just making us all your family tonight. So thank you for that.
Thank you for
so
having
much. And
us.
there's, for more information, you can go on to wondergirlsusa.org. We have a whole page about prevention for teens to read, for parents to read, as well as for educators in schools. We are on a mission to bring this issue to light and just to make people aware. We don't want our girls, we don't want people to be paranoid that they have to keep their kids in a bubble, but prevention happens when we are aware with education, and that we are using our platform to do that. So I appreciate all of you tonight being on tonight's call, and thank you so much for all your support of Wonder Girls. Thank you everyone here for supporting all of our speakers as well. We appreciate you, and we hope to see you soon on our next virtual in February. So thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Have a great night,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.